Hi, the Mudbrooker here. You know, it's real easy to become kind of snobbish once you start collecting cast iron and you make a few real nice finds and you restore something that turns out to be, pretty rare and valuable, or at least real old and interesting. Case in point, just this week I was out and about, hit a couple of second-hand stores, and I found this little skillet here. It's wonderfully smooth, it's very thin, very light. As you can see, it's been used quite a bit. It's everything you could possibly want in a frying pan. But a lot of collectors would pass this by because when you turn it over, it turns out it's made in Taiwan. Just because something is imported isn't a good reason to just pass it by automatically. Before we get into this, I would like to thank my patrons on Patreon: Kay's Kist, Benedict Riggers, Joy Jones, Damian Bamer, Leo, Theodore Engelke, Valentin Tolman, Rudy Valvano, Kiasby, John Wheeler, and my newest patron, Sherry Lynn. Please feel free to join them, and I'm going to have a glass of Jameson in their honor tonight. Aaron go brah. My patrons' continued support is greatly appreciated and much help. Anyway, imported cast iron. There's two main sources of cast iron that you're going to find, at least here in the US, Europe and Asia. I'm going to start off with some of the European stuff first. Most of the ironware you're going to find in the US anyway is enameled. There are some bare iron examples of European cast iron from different brands and different makers, and it might be different in Europe, but around here it's going to be mostly enamelware. Le Creuset is a French brand, very popular, beautiful stuff, but it's very expensive. Something like this isn't Le Creuset. Something like this, even used, is going to cost $125 to $150. They sell for enormous prices. But another excellent brand is Descoware, and which this is. It's made in Belgium. Hopefully you can see that down there. It says Belgium, and it has it looks like it's inked on. I'm not sure how they embed that in the enamel, but that's their logo. Descoware, it's made in Belgium. Something like this would probably cost you $25 maybe, depending, and it's real nice, light, thin stuff. I also have a Descoware lid. It's a nice little lid. It's a lot cheaper than the Le Creuset, and there's a lot of other brands out there, the Cuisance, for example, and several others. This little enameled iron pie plate is made by Husqvarna in Sweden. I've always wanted a cast iron pie plate, but honestly the main reason why I chose that particular one is because it matches my chainsaw. Anyway, apart from European stuff, most of what you're going to find for import is Asian. Now, this is a WKM brand made in Taiwan. There's also a WKM that's made in China, but it isn't nearly as good a quality. Whether they just kind of ripped each other off, I don't know. But like I said, this is a beautiful little pan, and it's made in Taiwan. Anybody would just kill to have something like this for cooking in. There's also a lot of stuff that's made in Korea. This little skillet here, there's a certain brand of Korean cast iron. It has a heat ring with 3 notches in it, like a lodge, and it usually has the typewriter script, kind of like on an unmarked Wagner, but it's neither one, and it clearly says made in Korea. The insides are usually milled nice and smooth, and they're pretty decent little pans. This is another Korean pan. You can see it's got some swirly machining marks on the inside. A little bit rough on the outside, but it's good quality iron. This is a Sun brand, if you can see that. 10-inch skillet in Korea. but they're good quality iron. And I've mentioned it before, the real trick is learning how to spot the difference between good iron and bad iron. I'm going to show you one other Taiwanese pan. I've had this in videos before. This is a little skillet made in Taiwan, and it's a fantastic pan, and this is one of the best pans I have for making fried potatoes in. It browns beautifully. I think they imported those sometime in the 1980s, 1990s. I think I got this in the mid-90s. But they're easy to identify. They tend to be real shallow, and the sides slope out at a pretty steep angle compared to other pans. But if you happen to find one of these little made in Taiwan of this style, it's going to be a real good pan for you. Now on to China. Chinese cast iron varies hugely in quality. Some are good, some, like this broken fajita pan, are just god-awful dreadful. For example, I have two pans here that are very similar to each other. One of the hallmarks you'll notice of Chinese-made, Asian imported pans is this style of a handle. It flattens out right before it gets to the edge of the pan, but it has kind of a raised top on it, and it's long and curved. This pan is really bad. It says made in China on it, but if you can see in the light, it has that real coarse, crystalline, porous texture to it that indicates it's probably bad iron. Another way to spot a bad pan is you can see that somebody tried to season this and probably used it a few times and then gave up on it. I got this at a Goodwill just for a demonstration for this video, in fact. A pan like this that has a real rough, abrasive texture to it is going to be nothing but a pain. It's very difficult to season. Even if you get it seasoned good, you're still going to have problems with things sticking to it. So if you see something like this, just pass it by. It's really not worth your aggravation, especially if you're new to cast iron and you're looking for an inexpensive way to try it out without, investing a whole lot of money in it. This is the same style of pan. It isn't marked made in China, but it's, the identical kind of design. And this one isn't bad, actually. It's a lot better iron, and it's a finer grain texture. It isn't machined inside, but it has a lot smoother texture. This pan would probably be usable. So you really have to learn how to buy a pan before you buy a brand name. If it has a real rough, grainy, crystalline sort of texture to it, it's bad iron, and you're never going to be able to get it to season right. You're always going to have problems with it. If it has a nice, fine, smooth grain texture to it, you're probably going to be alright. Another hallmark of Asian pans is this thumb rest, this horizontal grooved thumb rest across the width of the handle. A lot of Asian pans have that. It's really distinctive. This one happens to be a MSE, and this also has another indicator. This pattern of concentric rings, slightly raised, with a bare spot in the middle that may or may not have a different logo in it. I know Benjamin and Medwin is a brand name that has this same concentric rings, and sometimes this little area in the middle is blank, but that's a pretty common indicator of it being Chinese manufacture. This particular pan is, it's alright. It might work, but you can do a lot better. Mainstays is a brand that's sold at Walmart, and it's basically a Chinese-made knockoff of Lodge. They're alright. They have that rough, pebbly texture like a Lodge does, but it's a little worse, and for the couple of dollars you save, if you're actually at Walmart buying it, if you're looking at one of these, you're going to be within arm's reach of the Lodge display, and you're better off just spending a couple more dollars and getting a Lodge. In fact, I recommend Lodge for people who are just starting off in cast iron and you want to see if it's something you want to pursue, if it's something you like cooking in, because they're inexpensive. A 10 or 11 inch Lodge skillet to cost you about $20-25 brand new. You're not going to spend a whole lot of money on it, and it's going to work well for you. And as you learn a little bit more about cast iron, you can branch out from there. Some other brands you might find is, this is Tools of the Trade Basic. It's not really a bad little pan. And there's another brand that has an almost identical design. It's called Pioneer Woman. I really like the handles on them, and they always have either a big loop helper handle or sometimes a big tab on it. I really like the design, but the Pioneer Woman especially tends to be real poor quality. Bad iron, real rough. You're going to have problems with it, which is a shame because otherwise it'd be a nice little pan. A lot of the celebrity chefs have stuff that's made in China. Where'd he go? This guy. This thing weighs a lot more than it should. It's really heavy, really chunky. This is an Emerald Lagasse pan. I wouldn't really recommend it. They're pretty rough. They're way, way too heavy for what they are. And that's another sign of bad quality iron. This is actually a cast by Calphalon, or Califon. Califon is a big brand name in cookware. They make excellent stainless steel and layered cookware. They make good stuff, but their cast iron isn't that impressive. The quality isn't bad. I mean, it's a usable pan, but the handles on all the ones I've seen are way, way too short. They do have a helper handle, which is good, because otherwise with that stubby little handle, you just wouldn't be able to do anything with this pan. And let's see, where was I? That's that Mainstays pan again. This is a Food Network pan. It's a kind of a chef skillet. They're curved up on the bottom like that, so you can toss things in it like a saute pan. It's alright. The main thing, like I said, is learning how to buy the pan before you even bother with a brand name. If you learn what good iron looks like, it has a good texture to it, nice fine grain, even if it has a pebbly texture, as long as the iron itself is fairly fine grained and isn't real rough and abrasive and coarse feeling, you'll probably be okay. The easiest way to learn how to spot good pans is to do a little window shopping. Go to an antique store. You don't have to buy anything. Just go to an antique store, look at vintage Griswold and Wagner ware and Birmingham Stove and Range and all the old makers, and get a feel for what they look like, what they feel like, and then go to a second-hand store and try and find the worst iron you can find, just so you can see what the difference between good iron and bad is. And after that, you'll never go wrong. Like I said, where'd he go? This little $3 made in Taiwan pan is every bit as good as any vintage Griswold or any vintage Wagner. It's a beautiful little pan, and it costs $3. And if you know what you're looking for, take a little time to learn, you can find things like this in second-hand stores for a song, and you'll have a great pan for cooking in, and really that's the most important thing. Well, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.